Hey everyone, a big welcome back to the Nick Elston Show, Season 5. They said it'll never work. It may not yet. Episode 7, and another amazing guest to bring you in the shape of Charlotte Phillips-Lynn. Big round of applause. I've actually introduced you to your walk-on music, which we'll get to right at the end, but that was a really cool thing. Hey.
Yeah. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good, you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Good. Welcome to the show. Probably a little bit unorthodox, but we should do that bit now. But yeah, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
So our paths first crossed through the glorious world of really financial planning, financial services. I work in NextGen and all that kind of jazz. And we've had some great guys from NextGen on over the past 5 seasons. So friends of the show, tell us who you are, where you're from and what you do. Think like you're on the chase or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as Nick said, my name's Charlotte. I currently work for a company called Secci, which is based in Bath. And I'm a senior dividends and corporate actions analyst there. Mm-hmm. Currently live in Bristol, but I originally grew up and was raised in Windsor. Okay. I moved here about 9 years ago, I think, something like that.
Very cool. Yeah. And I noticed you're from Oldland Common now, which apparently historically was my family's old stomping ground.
Oh, really?
Yeah, interesting. Nice part of the world, actually. A little bit out in the sticks there. Nice.
Yeah, it's not far to see some nice greenery. That's for sure.
Can I give you a headline, which I don't think you've given yourself a big enough build-up, to be honest, so I'm going to do it for you.
Okay.
We've done that. Senior operations, it's keynote speaker, and I've been there. Excellent speaker. Top 100 game changer with LGBT Great. Project 1000 role model with LGBT Great. Regional ambassador with It Gets Better UK. Mentor and country ambassador with my
G-Work.
G-Work, yep. The printer ran out of ink. But I had to print off a title because I knew you would massively undersell yourself. You should absolutely big yourself up. Some great titles there.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely good to be recognised for the stuff I do and be involved with so many different things. And just whack them all on LinkedIn and hope for the best. But otherwise, I'll forget everything I do.
That's exactly my marketing strategy as well.
Yeah,
let's tell people what I'm doing, who I'm doing it for.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were talking about kind of your recent appearance on the NextGen podcast. Again, I'm going to pop the link to the episode in the bio for this as well, because I would really love for you to check out not just this episode, but the podcast generally. You were talking about inclusion in finance and financial services, financial planning generally.
Yeah.
We will come to that, but I'm very keen to know about little Charlotte. Like what's brought you to my virtual door today? It's about kind of like growing up and all that kind of stuff, and why you are here now. What's kind of led you to what you do now, and why you're passionate about what you do?
Yeah, that's a big question, that is. I guess as a kid, I was always I loved football. I loved playing football. Football was life. That was my dream. I didn't pursue that dream, but it's not the end of the world. It is what it is. Don't know, standard. I went to school. GCSE wise, I didn't do that great. And I dropped out of college twice. So it's quite funny. Usually I get what university did you go to and what did you do at university? And I was like, I didn't go to university. It wasn't necessarily something that I ever wanted to do. I wanted to just jump into work. So I always said that I didn't want to be someone who worked in the office and worked on the phone and that kind of thing. And so my first job was working in an office on the phone. But it started my love of finance, really. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do as a career. Dropped out of college twice for doing a couple of different courses and just found out they weren't for me. So when I got my first job and started learning the world of pensions and like critical illness cover and that kind of thing, it was actually quite an interesting subject for me. It wasn't just a day-to-day job, it was just learning about all those little things. So, and then what's kind of got me here today is that I guess confidence. So I wasn't a very confident younger person, and I feel like that's really picked up since I started work, I guess, because I had to make new friends and be put in challenging situations and things like that. And then what led me to your virtual door, I guess, was NextGen Planners, and you ran a course on there, and I found it really, really interesting. I found you a great speaker to listen to and be engaged with and things like that. So here I am.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. I didn't even have to pay you to say that, which is
No,
a real bonus,
I'll
really.
take payment later.
Kind of like we have an economic crisis going on. I can't afford paid to
Yeah, no.
anymore, so this is all good. So some interesting things there, and lots of rabbit holes we can dive down. I guess you mentioned like kind of not pursuing the football thing.
Yeah.
Do you feel that was due to the then inequality around kind of football, and that's kind of been highlighted by the success of the Lionesses recently as well?
Yeah.
Or actually, was it more of a confidence thing? Why did you not choose to go that route?
So I guess it was definitely the inequality of it all. I think the Lionesses a couple of weeks ago, little me was screaming inside. I've never been so excited, and I guess when I was younger, when England didn't win, and this was mainly the men's team, I used to go and rip all the posters up and throw my flags away and all that kind of stuff, which is quite funny looking back at it now. But it was so special to watch. And there was part of me that was kind of like, would I have been there if I'd kept pursuing it? And I can't really think about that much, to be honest, because I didn't, and I probably gave it up when I was about 14, maybe something like that. So still relatively young then. But I'd have given anything, I think, to be on that pitch at that moment in time. But yeah, it was definitely and family reasons. Well, my brother also played football, and he was also amazing at it. And that kind of took precedent, really.
Okay, I just find it fascinating because the one thing I felt, and I'm not saying this because you're on the kind of the session now, I promise you, it's not that. Genuinely, when we first kind of crossed paths, what I loved was the fact that I could feel what you were saying, not just hear what you were saying, I could feel what you were saying, because I know, and since knowing you a lot better since, that there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of feeling that goes into why you do what you do, and especially when it comes to the more personal kind of led passions and challenges that you support. I mean, I mentioned right from the get-go kind of inclusivity. For those who haven't met you before, why are you so passionate about inclusivity? And I guess the leading question to that is, very often, even when it comes to things like mental health, the reason why we start to champion these things is because we've had bad experiences ourselves of being on the receiving end of not good stuff.
I guess it's a mixture of things. So when I am passionate about something, I really want to keep talking about it. And it's part because of frustration that people don't see people for being them and overlook that. And I think that it centers around LGBTQ people. That's what my talk centers around. And it also centers around a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now. And I guess I was young when I came out compared to some of the people. I think now there's a lot more people who feel comfortable in coming out younger because there's more support services and things like that. But I think it was just something that I started to explore and started to understand, and also try and understand things from other people's point of view. So I've got my point of view, but I also really enjoy taking other people's point of view and trying to understand it as best I can to understand how being in that situation is different and can be a struggle and things like that. And I think just growing up and having that confidence to speak out. The first time when I did the NextGen talk, I'd never done anything like that before. So to be able to do it and receive, an amazing response off the back of it, kind of solidifies that what I'm doing is right.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, how old were you when you came out, and how was the reaction to that?
So I was 17.
Yeah.
But I think I'd always kind of known anyway. And the reaction was quite mixed, I would say. But yeah, that's probably as far as I'll go with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of kind of now and how you kind of champion people, you have that understanding.
Yeah.
So that helps, I guess. It has that kind of empathy and compassion linked to that, because you have that kind of shared experience of as I said, being in those challenges yourself.
Yeah.
One of the, you mentioned so many things kind of when our paths have crossed through the Find Your Voice event you attended, especially due to the structure of the event, the tasks that I set throughout the day. You touched on lots of different things that were really important to you. Another one of those things was around pronouns and gender and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. We had a guy who I believe you met at the event, Ryan Shepard, who came onto the show to talk about this kind of stuff. But I'd really like to get another perspective on this as well, and why pronouns are so important to you, but why can they also be so subjective, should we say?
Yeah, I listened to that episode not too long ago, actually, and I found it quite comforting. So I guess from my point of view, pronouns may seem like a new thing, but actually they've always been there. And when I talk about pronouns, I mean being referred to as like she or he, or they, or any of the neo pronouns such as like z or zir. There's loads. So I think it's very important to be aware of them, which is the first point, I guess. And a lot of people do put them in their email signatures, on LinkedIn and things like that. And I think that's really important, but it's also important to use them, and also important to understand how they can be damaging to people if you use them incorrectly. And, there's been times where, even myself, I've used the wrong ones, and you just apologize and move on from it. I think the more you make it a big deal, the more that person feels uncomfortable.
Yeah. And what about the lack of understanding? I mean, I think it's a generalism, but I think it's not far off the miss that there's certainly a generational thing to this too. As I was talking through with Ryan, I think that very often the approach to something that we don't understand is to get defensive or to naturally push back. My natural go-to is to ask more questions. I'm going to very much like you on that, because if I don't understand something, that I want to know, why is it so important for people?
Yeah.
And Ryan's kind of episode was really standout for that. And obviously this episode as well, because the reason why we don't ask questions is that I think, especially now, we have that fear of being cancelled or judged as being kind of like prehistoric. And that's also quite tough, because I think that the pronouns elements generally, I don't think people have a problem with per se. I think it's when you start to look at the plural element of they, them, that people start to struggle with the actual literacy of that, in that sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, I was trying to describe it in a way that is, but my brain's kind of like, it's like it goes everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's that there's always that challenge of it's not grammatically correct. And I think the first time you hear it or use it, it can feel a little bit strange. So my pronouns are they, them. And I think the first few times I heard being referred to that way, it was a little bit strange, but I guess for however many years, like I'd always been referred to as she or her, right? So I think and you do get used to it, and you put the effort in to be able to remember to use it correctly, and not just whack it in a sentence where you feel appropriate. It becomes everyday language. So I think it's definitely we're so used to all that default language that actually, when it's different, it may not sound right, but it's totally affirming for that person.
Yeah, and I find it fascinating to say that, like you said, it's not new in that sense. Where I think the first time I'd heard about that was when maybe Sam Smith started chatting about it.
Yeah.
And that was literally the first I'd heard of it. So it's interesting that kind of how, unless your worlds collide, you don't get a chance to ask these questions anyway, either, do you?
Yeah. And I think asking questions is totally right. And I think, if someone is being nasty by asking them versus actually like they're asking because they're interested. And I think if you don't feel, a lot of people will feel comfortable, like I'll pretty much answer anything, but if there's anything I don't feel comfortable with, I just say I don't feel comfortable asking that, and it is what it is. But I think there's no harm in asking questions. It's just asking them in the right way.
Yeah, and I think that's the power of the platform. We were talking about we listen to audiobooks and podcasts. I think that's the power of being able to have conversations like this, which is very open.
Yeah.
Actually, it gives other people a chance to learn without having to kind of go through that process of potentially saying the wrong thing or even the right thing. When it comes to me, I trip over the wrong things many times getting to the right thing, but it's with the best of intentions, I promise you. That's fascinating. So when it comes to kind of your passion for inclusivity, what do you feel are the key foundation stones of an inclusive organization?
So I think the knowledge around pronouns, I'd say, is probably the initial one.
Yeah.
And then there's so many things underneath that businesses can do. So, they can have, if you don't identify as male or female, then a gender neutral toilet is going to be the most comfortable place for you. So there's things like that. There's also policies that people write up. So naturally, there's a lot of mother and father that gets used rather than just parent. So it's kind of just adapting that process of just thinking outside the box to a certain degree, and a lot of job what's the word, job spec thing, and are mainly tailored towards men. So when women read them, they literally go, oh, I can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And I know a lot of companies who've just changed it to kind of being like, can you read, write English? Can you do this? Can you do that? To kind of make sure that they've got that unconscious bias of scanning through CVs when they get them in. I know also companies kind of remove like names and addresses and things like that and just have that bulk CV. So again, that's automatically making your organization more inclusive, because out of that big pond that you're fishing out of, I suppose, that you're getting the best candidate for the role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think given my experience in like the mental health space, that I often see people lumping in mental illness and mental health and well-being all in the same kind of pot. And I'm very mindful of doing that with things that I don't fully appreciate and understand. Against probably the reason for the show is due to me, not anybody else, to be honest. It's like getting people on and asking questions. But I think you're right to kind of also kind of separate the pronouns element from the non-binary element. And I noticed recently that you were contributing to a conference, sharing your own lived experience of that. How did that go for you?
It was an interesting one. So I'd literally that's probably been one of the biggest journeys that I've been figuring out for the past year and a half, couple of years. I guess lockdown gave me a lot of time to think. And in the nicest way, you're starved of like-minded people during that time, or I definitely felt that way. So I feel like I had a lot of time to think and assess my life and how I felt or not felt and things like that. And I think it was really good, but it then led to quite a bit of anxiety about it all. So for me, I struggle, even though like my whole gender identity is to kind of fit outside that box. I really struggle. For me and my brain, I like things to be in a box, and it's either like a yes or no situation or a maybe and I'll find out later. So that I struggled with, and I'd come out to family and close friends beforehand, and then the day for International Non-Binary People's Day, when I was asked to go on to be a guest speaker on a talk with LGBT Great, to talk about my experience. And then it was kind of is for the world, then people can either like it or not. It's not the end of the world. I think the main thing for me that it kind of, in my head, I was always going to write a post on that day, and it kind of forced me in a good way to come out and talk about it, because I still felt quite awkward about it and didn't really have all the answers of questions that I might have been asked. So the actual kind of speaking about that was quite liberating. It was kind of like not like a new chapter in my life, but it also is that to some extent.
It is. It's kind of like drawing the line in the sand, really, isn't it? I guess it's kind of, and that's the thing, that nobody can cross that for you.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to say that still the stage, whether it's virtual or in person, is still very much a therapy space for me. And sometimes you need to kind of air something to a group of people to get that kind of validation that you're not going absolutely. Actually, other people experience these things.
Yeah, and it's funny how much we need validation in our life, isn't it? I think I'm open saying that I have CBT therapy, and I think everyone should have therapy. But I think that definitely helped with a lot of it, but nothing compares to actually jumping and doing it, and then knowing you're okay.
So are you truly being heard in life and in business? And think about that genuinely. If the answer to that is no, then you've found the right event. If If you want to give yourself that boost personally and professionally, come along to Find Your Voice Live. This will change your life. This will be the game changer that you've been looking for.
It provides me with the confidence in myself to prove to myself that I can do it, I can get up on stage, I can speak.
There's absolutely nothing to be nervous about with these events. It's very, very open, very, very relaxed.
Help my confidence go from here at the beginning of the day to here at the end of the day.
Hey everyone, my name is Nick Elston. I'm an inspirational speaker on the lived experience of mental health and a transformational speaking coach. I'm the founder of Forging People, and Find Your Voice Live is our flagship event where we cross the boundaries of personal development, mental health, transformation, and public speaking. Your ability to speak, to deliver any message to any audience with clarity and power and emotion will have an ultimately defining impact on your success by your own definition of that really subjective term. Speaking is life, speaking is business, speaking is education, and that's the thing that we focus on most. What I find is that people are here for many, many different reasons. Some people do absolutely want to be a stage speaker or a professional speaker. Some people want to be able to represent their business or to lead a team or inspire a movement or create a story. But even actually, some people want to be here just because they want to be heard at home. Maybe they don't feel their opinions being heard, that they can't say yes to the things they want to say yes to or no to the things they want to say no to. Again, this is where personal development meets mental health, meets public speaking to create a real positive impact. At the end of Find Your Voice Live, you will walk away with massive confidence around delivering your message. The ability to stand up and deliver means you will enhance your self-esteem in an amazing way. You will also have the skills and tools and tips and techniques to not only deliver a presentation, but to structure a presentation, to find your audience, to be able to deliver emotional storytelling to help your audience feel and make them want to be part of your tribe, make them want to be part of your following, and really tune into what you're truly about, to truly make yourself heard in life and in business. If you're sat on the fence, if you're still not sure, take the model that I use, say yes, worry about it later, and I'll make sure that you're looked after brilliantly. Myself and my team will make sure that you have an amazing day, a transformational day that will have the desired positive impact that you want to achieve. And the lived experience angles is an interesting one because it's not, again, you're not professing to be solution focused in that sense. You're not there to be that kind of person to give people all the answers, but what you're doing is you're sharing the ups and the downs. I mean, you're very prepared to kind of show both, and I think that's also a really important factor of lived experience. But also you can't be wrong because it's your experience. That's the first thing to say. But the fear is, and I'm not sure, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like this for years, that as soon as I finished the talk, I felt I was going to be picked up by the police afterwards. Like, what the hell am I doing on this stage doing this kind of stuff? Because kind of, it's an interesting one. I mean, I'm not sure whether it's a cultural thing. I think generationally and culturally, I think, especially in the UK, you look at things like CBT therapy and counselling. If I mention those things to a professional UK audience, and it has to be said, the space that you work in generally as an industry is one of the last bastions of traditional business. You mentioned it in that environment. This guy's nuts. He's told us he's in therapy. My US audience is, well, so does everybody else, Beardy Boy. Get on with it. There's so many differences. And I think, I mean, that's also an interesting one. So you're kind of like you're flying this flag in an environment which traditionally is the last bastion of business.
Yeah, and I think there's part of me that I think that's part of the appetite and a hunger I've got to keep talking about it, because, you know, things won't change quickly and things won't change overnight, and things aren't going to change because I said something. But when I did the virtual NextGen conference, I had messages from people kind of saying that they'd never thought about having pronouns in their LinkedIn or email, or they had them on one and not the other. And, you know, even little changes or changing someone's life, or, you know, someone taking something away, I think is all I can ask for from whatever I post about or talk about or anything like that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever had any kind of pushbacks or toxicity around what you're posting at and what you're sharing?
No, I haven't yet.
Good.
So touch wood. I think someone mentioned at the NextGen conference there were murmurings there was a D&I workshop, and it wasn't necessarily anything towards me. It was just kind of a general, oh, not this again type conversation, which I think is partly, they might have been a little bit older, and I guess the finance world is still very straight white male. So I think there's definitely a battle there to change that and include more people include more underrepresented groups within that. I think hopefully those people maybe took something away from what I said, and maybe made them think twice, and if not, then it's their problem, not anyone else's.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's certainly something to be said for the people that tend to be the most offensive, or the people that it may affect more. It's kind of literally his arms kind of folded, or very often a sign that actually I don't want to hear what you want to say. It's got to be a lot close to home, isn't it? And that's interesting because it's part of their kind of defense mechanism, actually, and that will be one of the things you'll have to break down, especially as your speaking career gets bigger and bigger, as it undoubtedly will. There will be people that you'd have to, well, I know it will, 100% it will, but there will be people that you will have to kind of not confront, but as we've kind of talked about before, as to if you ever have that kind of environment where people are arms folded, those are the kind of people you bring in first. I think it comes from my pub and club management days. You go for the biggest guy first.
Don't work your way down.
But I love what you're doing. I love the journey. So away from work and away from fighting a good fight, what do you love to do? What kind of recharges you?
I love plane spotting.
Love playing what?
I love plane spotting.
I said playing spotting. I've always spotted. What was a new game?
Here come the police now. So I enjoy that. I enjoy taking time to again learn from other people's perspectives on a lot of things. I think I really enjoy listening to music. That's definitely quite a good decompressant.
What kind of music do you like?
Anything. So my favorite genre is probably country music, 100%. And then
yes. 5 seasons I waited for somebody to say that country music is
I love it. It's not necessarily everyone's taste, but that's probably the most common thing I listen to. There's such a variety of different types. Like if you want to chill and slow it down, then you can, and if you want to jump about a bit, then you can. And I think, I don't know, I love so many genres. It just kind of depends what mood I'm in, but I think stick Shania Twain on and that's it, you're happy.
Nice. Love that. So actually genuinely I'm interested. Tell us about plane spotting.
So I don't really know where to start, but I guess it's so I prefer commercial aircraft to military aircraft or anything like that. But in lockdown, we actually had a lot of military stuff coming over because I don't live close to Bristol Airport, but I'm on the flight path for Bristol Airport. So that was quite a treat sometimes. But so I think probably the bigger the better in terms of planes. But ironically I don't really like flying, so I like watching them and I like them flying overhead and looking at them and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not a massive fan when I actually get on a plane.
So do you actually kind of note them and the reference numbers and the flight?
No, so I don't do that. I probably, if I made it more of a hobby, maybe later on in life, then I probably would do. But there's some that I know that I've been on. There was one the other day, and I've got an app, and it was there's a general emergency, and I was I was literally on that aircraft 2 months ago. So I was wow. But so I recognise the common one, probably the ones I've been on in the most recent time, and when there's different varieties of stuff, and when family are traveling on planes, I'm I'm gonna track you and watch you fly across the world or whatever. But
that's really cool.
It's something that's something is, I guess it's a bit niche.
It is, but I think you can take
I say that.
I think you can take it to the nth degree as well. I had a conversation with a train spotter once, and literally is reference books and clubs. And there's so much you can do, kind of thing. I just find it fascinating. And I love that. I think we all need that kind of that thing to, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, to nerd out on. And I speak as a qualified nerd this end as well. So absolutely get that. I love that. That's really cool.
There's quite a good place at Bristol Airport to watch. You literally just go there, watch them, and I don't know, you kind of forget about the world sometimes in that sense.
Yeah, like that. What's next? What's next for Charlotte?
So I've got a couple of podcasts lined up. So this one, I did the NextGen one, which you mentioned, and I've got a couple coming up at the end of or towards the end of the year. And I think, don't know, it's a difficult one. I want to keep talking. I want to keep getting my voice heard and get my story out there, and you know, not improve on that, but like add to it. And you know, the talk I did at NextGen was 10 minutes, but you know, there could be the possibility to keep going with that, and it almost lasts half an hour, and you know, give more pointers. And you know, I think it's you know, I love my day-to-day job, but I also love this element of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
So
the potential is kind of limitless, really, because it's such a. I mean, it's still a subject which is hardly covered. I know you said, you mentioned you may have had some kind of eye rolls, not this again, but actually I don't see that in general day-to-day life in business and stuff. I don't see that. But I also do a lot of work in education and prisons and stuff where it's never covered to the extent that you would cover it. And I think there's certainly an opportunity there for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of it starts in school as well. You know, I think, you know, when I was at school and I would have used it, you know, for something to be silly or bad or whatever, then, you know, the reaction was, oh, that's so gay or whatever. And I think there's possibility of stuff like that now. I mean, I don't have any children or really know people with children who are in school, so it's hard to kind of say like what their lessons and what their education on that kind of stuff is like. Apart from a couple of people at work, and they said they do kind of, you know, celebrate pride and stuff like that within the school, which is amazing really, compared to when I was at school. There was definitely not, you know, boys and girls got separated, and you learn about different things. And I'd like to hope it's changed, but I don't know how much it will have changed.
Yeah, I think like anything, it's probably there's progress, but it'll never really be enough. It never will be, because the world's constantly evolving. I think the increase in self-awareness and therefore, by definition, the increase in fear around change as well. Yeah, and that, I mean, that I certainly feel that's been highlighted over the past couple of years. Is that increase of fear of the unknown, because we've just kind of constantly been bombarded with stuff. Yeah, can become really overwhelming for people to the extent that they just really fear change, and which is a real. I guess it's a real challenge for both of us. I still get the same kind of pushbacks as a kind of. In a weird way, I laughed internally when you said about that kind of like that pushback, because I get that. I mean, I get that too. I actually had somebody once, I don't believe in mental health. I mean, what does that actually mean? So interesting. So I'm also conscious to the fact that my audience is very diverse in itself. Given spaces that I work in. So if anybody is kind of watching this now and really inspired by your journey or want to find out more, I'm very sure, I assume you'd be happy to hear from them. Absolutely. But aside from that, what kind of organizations do you recommend to kind of look up? I mean, I know you represent a couple of organizations. Do you want to give them a shout out? Yeah, so It Gets Better UK is a charity. So they at the London Pride event, where I was volunteering at, we actually got people to write messages to their younger self. So they specialise a lot with younger people, and it was so heartwarming to hear people's stories from where they were then to where they are now. And LGBT Great is a section that was set up for mainly the finance world. To kind of like give it a platform for like-minded people. So allies as well, and I think allies is a whole that could be a whole separate podcast of how important. Yeah, absolutely. Episode 2 of this one. So they have that set up, and my G work as well is kind of a networking. And they advertise jobs for companies who are really inclusive and things like that. And I was lucky to mentor someone who had started a new job, but their workplace wasn't very inclusive at all, and speak to them and go from there, which was, there's a lot of self-satisfaction and that when it comes to stuff like that. Yeah. And when you did put your kind of your voice out there and start to deliver that message, how did you feel that very first time? So kind of just before you hit live, how did you feel right then?
So I was sat in it was kind of like the virtual green room. So the first NextGen talk was virtual.
Yeah.
And I was throwing this stress ball around. And if there's like an outtakes video of what happens in the green room, then you'll literally hear me hit my face, shout an expletive. And then I got the call to go live. So I was like, oh God.
I so hope that exists. I'm going to be speaking to them. I'll speak to Adam and Dan.
Yeah, see if it
does. I'll find it.
But I was really nervous beforehand, and I think once I started talking, it was good. I think because we had to record it as well beforehand, just in case technical issues went all wrong. And I think that was the first few times I'd started really reading it aloud and making sure it sounded right. And it was that, I think that was arguably the most nerve-wracking thing. And then once I figured that out, the day of it, I was the last keynote speaker of the day.
Yes.
So I had to wait all day for it to happen, and I think that was good because it left people with a good message at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was definitely nervous, and once I started talking, it was fine. But funnily enough, I actually found the in-person event. I had a bit of a moment beforehand. I was like, oh, like I've got to actually do it in front of people, but remembering, you know, they've kind of got you back in a way, and it's a safe space, and so I would say the in-person event was easier to deliver it.
Yeah.
And I got some tips from someone, I can't remember their name, which is going to kick me, but someone beforehand about just some breathing and being able to just take a minute to put your feet on the floor and feel the floor. And I think that has literally changed how I would go about doing a lot of things actually now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good exercise. That kind of grounding, isn't it? Grounding technique to kind of own the space that you're going to be walking into, and to feel the fact that they're there to hear you, to see you, and actually take ownership of that space. Yeah, it's a very powerful tool. The reason, in case you thought it was weird, why I asked you that question after the support groups, is because I want people to know that actually it's difficult to start to speak out. Yeah, even very often just to ourselves, it's very difficult to have these kind of conversations. So if you've not got to that point yet, then for whatever reason, whether it's through Charlotte's journey, through my journey, whatever that may be, that it's just about having better conversations for yourself first. But when you do decide to take that step, that it's not easy. So make sure that you do reach out for support and people that are doing it already, and be prepared for that kind of sensitivity to hit afterwards. And I'm sure you would have experienced this too. Afterwards, you're thinking like, oh, I didn't say that, did I? Did I say too much? Am I not saying too much? So all those kind of things. I just want people to know that it's not, there's very often this perception of people like ourselves that are getting up and doing this stuff thinking like, hallelujah, these guys are cured, they've really got their shit together. Absolutely not.
No chance.
We manage our stuff daily to varying degrees of success, but that's okay. And if you're in that position, like you said, baby steps, have a conversation with yourself, and then start to immerse yourself in the support groups. Do reach out to Charlotte. I guarantee she's one of the nicest people I've met, certainly over the past couple of years. To the backdrop of the pandemic, it's thrown me some real gems, and Charlotte is one of them. So really pleased our worlds collided, and thank you so much for giving up your time to be on the show today.
Thank you.
But before you go, and you've done this, I've actually introduced you to your walk-on music. I am now the MC of the O2 Arena in London. This may happen one day.
It might do.
20,000
if it does, you can be on my guest list.
I'll be there. 20,000 people have paid their hard-earned money to come and hear you do your thing. You're sat back in the green room, sipping a drink, sipping a Prosecco, beer, whatever your choice is, and I call your name when your walk-on music kicks in. That song that motivates you, that lifts you, that gets you at peak state. Charlotte, what would your walk-on track be, and why?
So... oh, do you know what? I was almost tempted to change it, but I'm not going to. Maybe I'll change it one day. But so I actually had to pick this the day before I did walk onto a stage to give a talk. So the what I would go with is Lady Gaga, Born This Way, and I think the song itself has so much meaning to me and the journey I've been on, and so many other people. And actually, it's a pretty good song to walk onto, right? So,
really great, yeah.
You know, it's so. Should I tell you what I was going to change it to?
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
So I was so tempted to also do this for NextGen as well, which is Shania Twain's "Man, I Feel Like a Woman." But I feel like with my whole non-binary journey that I'm on, I just can't do that. It's a great song, like it ultimately pumps you up, but just not appropriate, I think, at the
You
moment.
can see heads blowing in the audience. Like, boom.
Yeah.
I love that. Just the devil in me loves you to do that once. So
Yeah.
when I book you to speak at one of my events, that's what you're going to walk on to.
Yeah,
just
I'll do that.
for shits and giggles.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to have you on, Charlotte. Big round of applause
Yeah,
for
thanks, Nick.
Phillips-Lynn. Woo! What a great guest. I hope you've all enjoyed today's show as much as I have. Learned so much, as always. I hope you have too. Charlotte, any parting wisdom?
Don't think so. Just be you.
Nice.
Be you. Love you. Do you.
Nice. I like that. You can see that on like a t-shirt or something. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so maybe not quite a live, love, laugh type vibe, but something like that.
So next week, stay tuned and hit subscribe and like and jazz, all that stuff, whatever it's going to take to get you back next Monday. We have another amazing guest to bring you from the world of diversity inclusion, one of the leads of Lloyd's Banking Group, Tom Kigode. He will be with us talking about all things diversity inclusion, really complements today's episode too. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, have a great week ahead. Be well, stay happy, and take care. See you soon, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye. And we're good.
Nice.
Enjoyed that. That was good.